Alright, gamers, listen. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree bosses, a decline in FromSoft's design. This is a video by a gamer that is a professional yapper. He is doing, I would say it's video essays. I think like this is the best way to describe his content. Like those are like essentially video essays. Let's see what Demotcracy, I guess that's how you pronounce the nickname, actually has to say.
I survived Shadow of the Erdtree. FromSoft's latest expansion spawned a whirlwind of discourse on difficulty.
Okay.
Countless FromSoft fans are sounding off with complaints of excessive challenge, iron-willed challenge runners are calling foul on the DLC's difficulty peaks, and somehow journalists have taken this opportunity for revenge on years of memes at their expense, telling you, yes you, dear viewer, are a scrub. Clearly a sign of the end times. I foretold
Getting told by the journal that you are a scrub is actual ultra offense, not gonna lie. And by the way, I'm gonna be looking at this video from the perspective of PvP pair, of course, yeah. But the video is mostly about PvE.
Told the coming of this cataclysm 2 years ago. In my award-winning video, Elden Ring bosses are an unbalanced disappointment.
Oh.
It's a metaphorical award, of course, in that I'm enjoying this controversy from a rickety high horse, a steed that has long since crumbled under the weight of the Shadow Tree. Today I'm gonna recount my tumble back to Earth, so strap in for a lengthy sequel, one I'll break down into parts for ease of consumption.
I really hope it's not going to be type of slob video where he just tries to force certain narrative and that's it. Yeah, because honestly a lot of people consider the Elden Ring bosses to just not be that good. I personally think they are great. I like the change of the formula of, let's call it like turn-based bosses, where you're just waiting for the end of the attack string and then just attack them. In Elden Ring, you have more like active combat. You are constantly in the fight and you have a lot of ways to attack despite being attacked. So it all makes sense, yeah? You can jump over the attacks and execute the jump attack yourself. You have like way more like moves overall, like crouch moves and stuff can be also used. You can use the ashes, of course, that literally carry vast majority of casuals through the game, because you can just spam them like crazy, which is probably not a great design. But yeah, technically you have all these options here that previously you didn't have. So it only makes sense for the bosses to be more active in the fight rather than just doing the thing and saying, hey, your turn now. Anyway, let's continue.
Part 1. The Build.
Okay.
Up. On February
Build up.
28th, 2023, at 3 AM Eastern Standard Time, the Bandai Namco Twitter, now known as X after being purchased by the loathsome Dung Eater. Look, you get it. You're here, you know Shadow of the Erdtree. The hype was bonkers. Elden Ring took a mere 2 years to reach sales the entire Dark Souls trilogy took over a decade to achieve. I'm sure you were a part of that. Or perhaps you saw the hate mob passing out pitchforks and thought the ruckus looked fun. I myself, despite my reservations, was optimistic. Perhaps FromSoft listened to feedback, and their new scaling system would remedy our woes. To approach things with a fresh eye, I decided to try something new for the first time in the DLC. I wanted to power stance. For those unaware, wielding 2 weapons of the same class enables a special moveset utilizing both weapons. I set my eyes on Great Stars. A pair of bloody maces perfect for the job thanks to the availability of 2 early in the game. They have great poise damage, innate bleed, and allow for custom Ashes of War.
Is that, I mean, like technically those are like great clubs, yeah? So they must be good in PvE due to the posture damage that you deal. Are they though? Because not utilizing proper tools in the PvE is the same like in PvP. You essentially just have nothing to complain about if you're playing with shit weapon. That just doesn't allow you to execute the gameplay correctly. They are good, I see. PS Great Stars is super strong in PvE, even used in speedrun. Okay. Alright.
Putting my triple-digit playtime to good use, I quickly slaughtered the base game, maxing both weapons early with occult infusion, courtesy of the Guts Plunge. This flip has obscene hyper armor and poise damage, further buffed by my stone barb physic. Finishing the build at level 150 with 9.
Look at this spread! Holy shit, this guy is not ordinary PvEer! How the fuck you dare to have more than fucking 10 vigor, my dude? Yo, this is based 80 fucking arcane. Dude, this is amazing. I love to fucking see it. And this is a PvEer, by the way, apparently.
Mandatory vigor totals and everything else funneled into arcane, the stage was set to prematurely end Mog's dynasty. I descended to the foul omen's lair and introduced him to the true Lord of Blood. My build was strong, perhaps the strongest I've ever used. Poise breaks, bleed procs, and chunky dual hits smashed the base game to pieces. Surely I was ready for what the DLC had in store. With great anticipation, I kissed Mikló's ring and made my way into the Land of Shadow. Part 2.
Jesus, this game is so pretty. Holy fuck, man. Just look at it. Look at this picture. Okay.
Humble beginnings. I was shocked to find overworld enemies dying with relative ease. They packed a punch, sure, but 2 to 3 bonks of my own is all it took to serve up pancakes. I began beaming with confidence, my heart melting to let hope seep in. The more I explored, the more real a realm where bosses don't have loaded HP and excessive damage became. Oh, I got humbled alright.
Ooh, wait, this is... He doesn't have Sword Seal.
Came.
What the fuck? What the... Is the stake shield... Does shield really deal that much damage? It's normal NG as far as I understand, because he created a completely new character. Yeah, I guess like no shadow fragments. By the way, you're supposed to read it as shadow fragments apparently for whatever reason. Or shadow, something like that. I actually didn't know about like at all. I was shocked, but I'm still gonna be using skibidi fragments.
Oh, I got humbled on
Approach here.
Part 3, The Hunt for Shadow. Curating the perfect build is not enough to carry you through
He
the
even
DLC.
pronounced that correctly.
Instead, you need to prostrate yourself to the Church of Shadow, taking communion from its fragments to bolster attack and defense. Translating to roughly double damage and half damage taken over the course of 20 blessings, tracking down Shadow Tree fragments is vital to weathering the DLC. Let's talk about why this system is a failure. Introducing a separate upgrade path into an already established game is a tough sell. You need to reprogram dozens of hours in the lands between that reinforced how we understand Elden progression.
It might be a hot take, but I personally like this system. Because here is a thing, you introduce gimmick new mechanic that just allows you to take that part of the game that normally can be honestly ignored, which is an open world and just searching through that open world. You feel rewarded for going in this other place, but because there is going to be skibidi fragment most likely. And I think that's great. I really personally like it. And I can understand that some people complain that, oh, when I am going into DLC on NG+, I have to look for this again, and that's so annoying. Yeah, but, well, you probably at this point have optimized road for them, and if not, then there is definitely at least one YouTube video that can explain the optimized road, how to collect them quickly. So I don't really think that's a problem. They carry over, don't they? As far as I know, they don't. Wait, skibidi level stays? They do? Okay, so there is no problem at all. So you are doing it only once. Well, I have seen complaints about it, but apparently like, hey, and you don't even need really like all of them, yeah? It's not like you need level 20. I got level 16 by the end of the DLC, and it was already overkill. And in the recent update, they even like lowered that requirement, because the way how currently like skibidi fragments scale is that like they give you more at the beginning and less at the end.
It all starts with Margit. Foul tarnished. Come back when you've emboldened those flames of ambition a little brighter, like leveling to at least 30 and getting some weapon upgrades. From the very beginning, we learned that leveling our stats, acquiring better gear.
Dude, this guy is leveling up HP. Such a blessing to see a PvEer with a brain. Oh, I love it, dude. It feels so nice, man. So refreshing.
And upgrading it is the best way to even the playing field. The more we explore, the stronger we become. The same is true for shadow fragments, right? Explore the Shadow Realm to claim as many pieces as possible. There's a key difference. Runes can be obtained anywhere, anytime. Smithing stones are concentrated in specific areas you discover intuitively. Talk to one of the many merchants to find a handful for sale. Find the orange highlighted caves to reveal a network of upgrade gold mines. The most important quality that runes and upgrade materials have in common is their quantity. Through bell bearings and an endless stock of baddies to farm, you can acquire as much as you desire. Yet, you don't see every tarnished touting a billion runes and enough stones to build a second Stormvale castle, because the time required would be astronomical for diminishing returns. Every player has their own stomach for it. Some players refuse to go out of their way at all, instead banging their head against whatever walls they encounter until they break through. At the opposite end of the spectrum, you have cheddar enjoyers that spend hours committing avian genocide. Most players fall somewhere in between. They deviate from roadblocks, explore a modest amount, then try again with better stats. Margit taught us very few bosses are a strict gate to progress. Let's return to my death at the hands of R'Lana. I had acquired 5 blessings. Her brutal damage output made me reconsider if that was enough. Yet I spent 5 hours scouring the opening area as thoroughly as I felt I could. For all I knew, I had more blessings than average, and this was the new standard of difficulty. It wasn't like with Margit when I got whooped walking out of the character creation screen. I had a full-fledged build, both.
Okay, so looking at this build, I think it's pretty good, but that amount of poise, 51 poise is the only PvE breakdown. It's 101 as well, yeah, but 51 is the most important. So yeah, like that poise could be ramped up, I guess. But yeah, I'm honestly curious, like, about endurance, because I can imagine that, like, 22 endurance probably is enough, like, when it comes to stamina amount overall.
60 vigor and 80 arcane, with fully upgraded dual great stars and maxed out crimson flasks.
Look at the rings are fine too. Although probably, like, in his case, maybe like a jump attack ring could be better, yeah?
Instead of having multiple options to progress, like farming.
Defensive rings, very good point, right? Like, the defensive tallies are fucking great in the PvE.
Rooms, looting caves, befriending blacksmiths, and communion from the churches, you solely increase your odds by finding fragments. Notice, I didn't mention golden seeds. It's because while you can find them at small trees similar to Miquella's crosses, that is only a fraction of the total available. These technically consistent portions are a drop in the ocean of Elden Ring's map. Stumbling upon them relies on extensive exploration. The devs seem aware of this, as they included far more seeds than you actually need to fully upgrade your flask. Why they didn't afford the same logic for shadow fragments, your guess is as good as mine. To their credit, you are given a map of Miquella's.
Yeah, but wait a second. Your Estus flasks, like Crimson flasks, are basically fundamental thing to the game, yeah? Like, you're supposed to have them maxed out, whereas skibidi fragments are stuff that you don't exactly need to have them maxed out. Like, it's your decision to do that. You don't exactly need to get all of them. You are actually becoming, like, quite fucking powerful if you're gonna do so. It's your decision. You need 12 for soft cap. Yeah, like, I felt like I had too much by having 16 when I finished the DLC.
Crosses that expands as you progress through the story, but again, these represent a fraction of the whole. A total that includes ridiculously obscure locations, like a tiny indent in a nondescript cliff. Out of the massive Cerulean coast, I needed to happen upon this tiny crevice. Discoveries like this encouraged me to hug cliffs and rotate clockwise around the map.
That's great,
I wouldn't miss anything, which frankly sucked.
Why? I so incredibly fucking disagree. I love it so much. It's like exactly these moments where I am getting rewarded for licking the walls. Like, you have in the DLC this concept of these fucking urns that gives you the merchant item that allows you to later on buy stuff, like strings and so on. And I think this is such a cool concept. I really disagree about this point. Like, nah, I absolutely disagree.
I enjoy exploring Elden Ring. It's one of the game's biggest strengths. The base game is designed in such a way that you don't need to see everything for a balanced and fun playthrough. In fact, it's to your benefit. The more you explore, the more you realize how frequently assets are recycled to give the illusion of depth. The uniqueness begins to fade into tedium when you go the completionist route. I point again to golden seeds as evidence the devs understood this. Another example is only needing to slay 2 demigods to access the capital city. It's not that they don't think it's worth killing every demigod, but they realize the average player isn't gonna find them all. So they chose not to leave you progression locked against more obscure lords like Ricard. I don't understand why this logic changed for the DLC. Doing my 10th lap around the Shadow Realm in the hopes of stumbling upon some unturned stone that may not even exist is maddening. Which brings up another issue, how poorly this system is communicated. I keep hearkening back to Margit's stone wall of newbies, encouraging you to explore and progress. If he deals too much damage to you, you can immediately see tangible benefit in leveling vigor. Your HP bar is larger, your margin of error increases.
You say it, but if you would be playing Invasions, you would know that it actually achieves fucking nothing.
Same is true for damage. You upgrade a weapon and it receives a nice plus X next to it, signifying the attack increase. While the offensive and defensive benefits from blessings have the same effect, it's much less intuitive. You only get a golden highlight over your existing stats. Your HP bar doesn't change, there's no upgrade to your weapon, you just trust the game that you're now dealing more and taking less damage.
Honestly, I understand this argument, but at the same time, in my case, when I see these golden numbers, I am always impressed. Because they are usually so incredibly high, like both your attack rate and defenses. But that being said, I understand an idea of, okay, like it is for the casual player, it might be not that obvious because they are running in shit rags, yeah? And they are not super impressed when they see 70% defenses, yeah? Because they do not understand the importance of that high defs.
Why not extend the upgrade level of your weapon for each blessing? Why not add increases to your HP bar? This would be more obvious ways of communicating the importance of the system in a way the player already understands. It may seem arbitrary, and it is, but player understanding is vital to get them to engage in a new system.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Essentially to, you know, person like me, when I see that big ass air number and defenses, it definitely matters. But for the casual, it's probably not obvious enough way of explaining to the player that, yes, you're getting stronger.
Shadow fragment system a failure? If the player base doesn't understand their importance organically, that is on the developers.
Yeah.
It's their job to emphasize how crucial they are in a digestible way through gameplay, not nudges from the Bandai Namco Twitter or Steam announcements telling players to count their blessings. When players do understand their importance, it is on the developers if searching high and low for them is a tedious affair. They did at least update the system during the production of this video, increasing the upfront value of the first 10 blessings, while pacing for the final 10 more modestly. This is a good change. It puts less pressure on you in the early hours, though I suspect there could be an unintended consequence. Players may give up on the latter half since they have less value. I think a better update would be to lower the total blessings you need to cap. Make it so the first 10 levels only require 1, 11 through 15 require 2, and 16 through 20 require 3.
Okay, give me a second. Bro needs someone to hold his hands, you say, sword guy in chat. Listen, I honestly think that it is fair to ask developer to explain the main mechanic, the main minigame mechanic in the DLC in, like, you know, in the way that's like very well understandable. Yeah, I can understand that Souls games overall by design are kind of obscure, but you know, this is very important. It's supposed to be like super obvious that yes, you need this. You're supposed to be screamed at, hey, no, don't go kill anything, go explore. Because for the regular player that is not really good at the video games, they are not going to beat any bosses if they do not have like at least plenty of these fragments. So yeah, that's important.
That would reduce the total necessary to 35, while allowing you to acquire the all-important first 10 levels more quickly. A gentler curve and a reduction in the overall total will reduce the pain of missing out on a random pot enemy holding an all-important fragment. Any extra the player finds could be converted into runes, a boon to an already infinite resource that is helpful, but not mandatory. Or they could have relied on past success. Sekiro had the perfect blueprint. Mini bosses that increase HP and defense, while beating full bosses increased attack power. This works.
I don't know about that, honestly. Did you guys like this system? I feel like it was okay for Sekiro because you had no normal progression anyway. That was your only way, yeah, of progressing. I think like there was like, you know, the levels were there like in form of like some upgrades to the special attacks, yeah? It was good for Sekiro. I wouldn't say it would be good here, yeah? That's my point.
So well because Sekiro has light progression locks that insist you get a certain level of attack power before progressing. Elden Ring sacrifices this strictness in favor of freedom, which isn't a bad decision in a vacuum, but when the world and its fragments are so widespread and obscure, it makes progression an inconsistent mess. Wow, all of this inspired by a single overkill blow from Rolana. Maybe my belly aching isn't justified when I could just, you know, dodge.
I think most of this argument is kind of like cope. I remember there was that other content creator that created a video called Elden Ring is Disappointing. And it was this boy on Never Knows Best. He's also a professional yapper. And this gamer essentially complained about meta. Like he had like a complaint of, I don't want to play meta. Meta is boring. Therefore, I will be playing with shit weapons, and I think the game is very, 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 very hard because of it. Literally overly hard. But I won't be playing good weapons because meta is boring. That's a principle. And, you know, just casual approach. The game gotta have to adapt to me in every single way.
4. Combos everywhere. Unlike Shadow Fragments, these combos go to infinity and beyond. It's the same crap we saw in the base game on steroids. Somewhere along the way, FromSoft decided to patch out your turn. Gone is the ebb and flow style of combat where you trade equal offensive gambits. Most of the time, you're forced to settle for tiny gaps, sneaking in a single measly attack. That's if you evade everything preceding it, otherwise that's now a healing window.
No, that's actually not true. The way how the combat now works is mostly all about just constantly, continuously exchanging blows in the way that, like, you know, like you essentially jump over the swipe and then like you deliver the jump attack. The combat in Elden Ring is more like PvP than it ever was because you have a huge and yet again, I repeat, absolute gigantic matter of spacing. Like previously in other Souls games, it's usually about, oh, I dodge, I attack. And that's it. Like PvE and PvP were kind of separated in that manner. But right now, if you are good at PvE, then you understand spacing, you understand strafing, and you understand like proper jumping, especially, yeah? So essentially attacking while the boss is also attacking. And I think that's beautiful. I personally really like it. I think that's a good change.
Losing damage openings for recovery extends the fight duration, increasing the likelihood you'll make more mistakes. This creates a loop of getting hit, healing, rinse and repeat until death arrives. You are, of course, expected to learn from your mistakes and overcome them in subsequent attempts. Due to the razor-thin error margins, though, this process is more daunting than ever. While I've praised FromSoft for this MO in the past, it's only compelling when balanced tightly with the perception of fairness. Everyone's tolerance for this formula will vary. I consider myself on the more masochistic, tolerant end of that spectrum. I've speedrun the majority of their games, done challenge runs like solo.
Wait, what the fuck?
End of that spectrum. I've
Bro is playing fucking Final Fantasy VII in Sekiro.
Run the majority of their games,
it's a cloud.
Challenge runs like soul level 1s, and rarely cry foul unless I feel it's warranted. Spoiler warning for the final boss if you want to avoid them in 3, 2, 1. Because that's the only thing you'll be avoiding in Phase 2, as what minute holes Radahn has in his combo strings are now filled with holy flashbangs. Blistering attack speed, airtight gaps between attacks, instant gap closers, huge attack radius, minimal downtime between combos, you name it, Radahn has it. The first phase is tough, but allows you to find those minuscule windows and come out on top. It even becomes a satisfying loop after learning. Then, Miquella rains on your parade with magic spam and supercharged attacks that feel anything but fair. This is an unprecedented level of bullshittery that we've never seen across 7 games. Radahn's second phase is the product of cheap difficulty escalated to the extreme. I'm not just claiming it with no evidence either. I brought the receipts. There were a lot of early reviews comparing the final boss to another phenom of aggression, Ishin the Sword Saint. There's no shot an Elden Ring boss would have more demanding attack uptime than Sekiro, right?
Wait, I don't understand. Is it a complaint that Ishin boss fight was like badly designed? Bro, I come back to Sekiro only for this fight. Or maybe I misunderstand something. Like, this fight is so fantastic. I fucking loved it to the core. Okay, let's continue.
I viewed their second phases and totaled up how many times they attacked in the first 30 seconds and noted how long the animations were from wind up start to hitbox end. Ishin clocked in at a whopping 14 attacks over 30 seconds. Yet the deflect system and minor breathers in between attacks notched only 43% attack uptime. He's fast and punishing when he's on the offensive, but leaves fair opportunity for the player to attack, heal, reposition, and counter during uptime via the deflect system.
I don't understand the comparison though, because Sekiro is a completely different game.
As for Radahn, if you include the Holy After Effects as their own attack, which you should, considering they are separate, delayed hitboxes, the Consort of Death unleashes 33 attacks over 30 seconds with 90% uptime. To put that in perspective, Ishin leaves 34 seconds per minute for you to breathe, while Radahn gives you 6.
Okay, listen, that's a lack of understanding of the concept though. Because yet again, like, you straight up have in Elden Ring ways to attack a boss when you are being attacked. And you have so many of them, like even like just the fact that, you know, like you have the Spirit Ash next to you just attacking is the way of accomplishing it, yeah? Like you having an aggro and the Ash can attack, whereas like vice versa, like if aggro is on them, you can attack like basically for free, yeah? And like Sekiro is a completely different game. Sekiro is like a HEMA type of combat where you like, I am being attacked, I deflect, I attack back, I'm getting deflected, like just like back and forth, like it's basically rhythmic game. Kind of like, you know, the sword fight is, if you think about it to some extent. Like Elden Ring is just completely different. The fact like the freaking Radahn has like a bazillion of freaking attacks doesn't really mean that much, because you have like absolutely ways to deal with it. And one of them is, for example, like Radahn is the boss that is designed to be defeated with parries, for one. And like there is, actually I have seen the video today. Let me actually find it real quick. This gamer over here, he actually beat Radahn on the level 1. So the entire gameplay loop that this gamer had here is just him utilizing the dagger, like parrying. This is another way how you can beat this boss. You can use the shield to the shield poke. You can like that's also like the way to trivialize him. This guy, for example, using the backsteps, yeah, like he is parrying, he's applying the status effect, and because yeah, that's this like a cold dagger, yeah, and yeah, like he had like a clean execution on the guy, and he did it on the level 1. Like it's so what, like you have like a bazillion attacks per minute, like when you can just make the guy just stop attacking altogether. I think this argument is like, oh yeah, the boss is ridiculous. Yeah, the boss is ridiculous, but the boss is supposed to be ridiculous. It's by design. That's the point. I have feeling like the gamer is trying to approach the game like it would be Dark Souls 1, 2, or 3, where the idea behind the boss fights was completely different. It's yet again, it was like you had like a turn of the boss, then boss was like telling you, okay gamer, I am done with my bullshit, your turn, come on. And then you had like a free hit on the boss. And this is not the boss design in Elden Ring. It's different.
While putting out over double the number of attacks, more than 1 per second. Radahn attacks more often, with longer animations, and all with less fluid defensive options due to mediocre combat speed for the player by comparison. Looking at other bosses across the series against the DLC,
yeah,
you can see how the game has slowly closed this attack uptime.
Yeah, what I said just a second ago.
Gap. The only exceptions are Bloodborne and Sekiro, the games most heralded for their unique combat that shirk the trend of FromSoft's arm racing against Souls players getting good. It's not that these two games don't have bosses that attack frequently, it's that they give players the tools to succeed against them. You have more accessible counters and gun parries and deflections. You have stagger on hit for most bosses. Transformation attacks and shinobi tools stun, fill gaps, and increase your range, and both reward your performance through increased posture damage in Sekiro for adept deflections, while Bloodborne offers more attack uptime with timely quick steps and rallying back health to reward aggression. In Elden Ring, you get to withstand an unprecedented flurry of offense while barely having anything more at your disposal than was offered almost a decade ago in Dark Souls 3. Attack uptime only tells...
I disagree again. Like, Ashes of War in this game just can absolutely carry it through all the freaking fights. Like, sometimes you can just straight up skip the fundamental mechanics of the game, click like button a few times, and you fucking win. Yeah, I agree. I disagree about that, like, wholeheartedly. Like, fuck no, man.
The story at a high level. Looking more closely, the DLC is rampant with large get-off-me AoEs that one-shot anyone who dares take the only lengthy opening available, persistent hitboxes on attacks that decrease the error margin to dodge or jump even further, and a lack of restraint with special effects that obscure visibility. Mesmer, for example, is a boss I quite like.
Okay, I agree about Mesmer, by the way, my favorite boss in the DLC. But thing is, though, it's just the guy doesn't really utilize proper tools for the job. It's like motherfucker is bringing a dull knife to the gunfight and being like, oh, what the fuck, bro? Like, this game is dog shit. Bro, Vow of Indomitable, or however it's called, for an example, it's like perfect tool in the PvE to just avoid this type of attacks, and every single build in the game can utilize. It just, what happens here is the gamer made a build, and honestly, like, it's kind of well-designed build, but it's gonna have its upsides, it's gonna have its downsides, and on top of that, like, in this particular case, it's not even a downside, it's just like intended, or more like intent of the guy just not wanting to utilize these tools. Maybe like he didn't know, he didn't think of it, but he just didn't bring like correct tools to the job, and that's it.
On attacks that decrease the error margin to dodge or jump even further, and a lack of restraint with special effects that obscure visibility. Mesmer, for example, is a boss I quite like. While he's still amplified to Elden Ring's levels of absurdity, there is clear downtime to gain from adept evasion and understanding of his moveset. Yet I was frustrated when learning the fight, because his magma effects and snake transformations made it hard to read and respond naturally. Instead, I had to get pummeled a dozen times until I could memorize dodge timings. This was better executed as recently as the base game. For all the things we could pile on Melania for, the majority of her attacks have very clear tells. The clicks of the prosthetic, the motion of her blade, sliding it down with subtle sparks flying, different postures, quick steps, and jumps were all clear and intuitive to understand. Readability isn't the only victim of excessive effects.
Now when I think about it, bro is like, Mesmer that is, he has his repetitive patterns that just reappear throughout duration of the fight, and they are always the same. Like these unreactable moves, like I don't know, maybe complaint is, oh, like when I first time facing the boss, I'm going to die most likely. But isn't that the case for practically every boss in the game? I don't know, man. It's I feel like there was not really a problem in my eyes with the boss like at all. Like I feel like that boss is just good design all across the board.
Great optimization and performance has never been FromSoft's strong suit, yet I can't recall even Bloodborne dropping frames as badly as this DLC. Divine Beast's weather effects should have forecasted a chance of raining frame drops. Rolana's moon bombs took my frame rate with them, Mesmer's quick camera motions and bombastic flames tanked frames, Migala's flashbangs made my game chug, and the worst of the bunch wasn't even a remembrance boss. I suffered fighting my billionth Deathrite bird in an erratic slideshow from the overabundance of flora and flames.
That's actually a very interesting thing. I didn't play on PC in the DLC, but it might be shit PC optimization actually. Because like I played on PlayStation and I don't remember dropping FPS in Mesmer. At last boss, last boss I cannot tell because I cheesed them in with the fucking shield, so it didn't matter at all.
This is excusing outright bugs like DeathKnight.exe that stopped working in the middle of our fight. I didn't want to win like this, so I tried jumping on him to wake him up, and
Demo. Oh.
Lucky me, I guess. If none of this happened to you, I'm glad. But this shouldn't happen to anybody. Nobody deserves a lesser experience by dumb luck. As for stylistic decisions like excessive special effects and stringing the camera for Bale and the hippo on a bouncy ball in their crotches, I can't say I agree it's worth the cost. Adding the flurry of oppressive offense, obscured tells, and poor combat performance together, I reiterate FromSoft's arm race against the player base. In director Hidetaka Miyazaki's own words, the sense of achievement players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience. Part 5. The Stubborn Soloist. I too find the sense of achievement from overcoming fair and balanced hurdles a fundamental part of what I love about—
Oh my god, he's going to talk about him not using ashes, yeah? The spirit ashes.
FromSoft Souls-likes. They have well trained me over 7 games to enjoy the struggle and to best it against all odds. That training paid off. Yesterday's challenges no longer seem significant by comparison. After conquering Shadow of the Erdtree, even Elden Ring's base game bosses fall behind. I faced Millennia before and after the DLC. Before, she took me a dozen attempts, and after, I was able to beat her on the first try. Bosses like Godfrey and Radagon that were once daunting for me fell easily, not only from skill
Yeah, this is what experience is.
honed
You're gonna be doing the same to the DLC bosses.
by the DLC, you now gain an absurd amount of runes through it. You may not carry your blessings into the Erdtree, but you carry millions of runes that scale you well beyond what New Game once encouraged. Don't even get me started on previous games. Going back to those bosses feels like I'm having a nice picnic in a field of flowers with all the downtime they
I cannot look at this game, this FPS is so trash.
offer. All of this is to say, I understand their desire to keep escalating the challenge. The problem is there's an extremely fine line of balance between frustrating and fun. FromSoft thus far has set a gold standard in that arena more often than not. If Elden Ring's base game was the first sign of that waning, Shadow of the Erdtree is a flashing neon billboard with a god draped over it. So much discourse is centered around whether or not the DLC is too difficult, when I think the discussion should be about whether or not the difficulty is fun. The way I see it, you have 2 options to overcome the DLC bosses. Suffer and get good in spite of odds unfairly scaled against you solo, or give up and summon.
It's a game mechanic! The game is designed around you using this! God fucking damn it!
Spent a large part of the previous essay going over my problems with the Spirit Summon system, so I'll try not to dwell on it here. The long and short is designing Elden Ring bosses to be aggressive enough to maintain some modicum of difficulty when you have a pocket ally makes the solo experience an optional challenge that no longer feels as fun as it used to. Regardless of your position on
I fucking disagree, dude. Like, after experiencing Elden Ring, like, I have like a huge urge to start doing PvE content for a long time already. Like, I don't like the base game, but the idea of utilizing randomizers for one is something that I absolutely want to start doing at some point. Like, maybe when the hype after the DLC gonna go down a little bit and I'm gonna stop doing that good views on average PvP video, I'm gonna give a try to the PvE, because it just seems to me super fun to actually jump into that constant trading of the blows type of combat where you're just engaging into, rather than methodical and slow, like looking for the openings, into actual like a PvP like experience type of combat where you're just continuously looking for the opening that is just very, very slight, and preferably like you don't even have an opening, but more like you break the neutral by attacking in the moment when the opponent is attacking at the same time. I think this is great. I love it. I love this idea. So yeah, I disagree with that, like, oh, it feels worse. No, I think like that other games, at least to me, after experiencing Elden Ring, boss design feels simply worse, not as fun, not as engaging.
the Spirit Summon's inclusion, the lack of balance for true solo play is a disappointment for those who came to expect it from all their previous titles. My disdain for summoning personally has nothing to do with pride or ego, it's that it swings the difficulty too far in the opposite direction. If playing solo is now excessively difficult, playing with summons is too easy to the point of being unfulfilling. FromSoft's combat system is designed with one-on-one encounters in mind.
I actually want to mention that, like if he meant summons as a mimic tier, then like mimic tier is brain dead. But I assume, like, I have seen him using the summon in form of a player on the Millennia here. Yeah, you have the guy doing the jump attack. So if you're going to get random summons, you're very often gonna end up having like harder time than if you would be doing stuff solo, because people fucking suck. And yeah, difficulty of the boss also spikes. Yeah, more HP and I think if there is another thing but HP, but yeah, definitely more HP. That being said, when you are using passwords, then yeah, it trivializes experience because of over-leveled phantoms. Yeah, like passwords and scaling. The password scaling in Elden Ring is just dog shit. It's not strong enough, and having over-leveled phantom on your side when you're fighting bosses just trivialize entire experience, and that's why I think Elden Ring, without a doubt, has the fucking most garbage casual players when it comes to the individual skill out of all the games. I don't recall another game having such a fucking bad players from the get-go, honestly. Because they just getting carried by over-leveled phantoms throughout entire fucking game.
Being unfulfilling. FromSoft's combat system is designed with one-on-one encounters in mind. Enemy AI is not suited to tackle multiple combatants at once. Bosses attack either you or your summon, requiring them to amplify attack counts and up.
Okay, but they also change targets, just like that.
Time. Their sporadic aggro choices
like
make
here.
target selection a dice roll, making for wildly random encounters. Like solo, you end up relying on attempts where the boss gives you good RNG, favorable attacks and downtime when solo, and more time focusing on your summon to free up your own actions with spirits. I fought Bale solo first, only summoning Egon after winning via a save state. It took me 6 attempts solo. Wanna guess how many with Bale's nemesis? 1. It was night and day. Egon face tanked while I racked up colossal damage for 0 effort.
So here is the thing. The fucking NPC summons are so stupid, man. Like, they have shit AI. And FromSoft in the genius decided that, okay, our summons have shit AI. Let's make them good by being a freaking HP sponges. Like, it's just, I think like that's kind of shit approach by FromSoftware.
This was my first impression of the boss. I would have had little to say other than nice ass and nicer voice acting. And yet I can't say my solo experience was flawless either. Bale was just fast enough and the camera awkward enough to make hitting his weak point a struggle. It was a cinematic marvel, suffering less from the special effect overkill with clear tells, good diversity of attacks, and reasonable ways to counter. But it felt awkward resorting to hitting the legs and tail when the spectacle encouraged you to fight head on. It feels like a lose-lose situation. When fighting solo, you're punished with aggression designed for 2 targets. When summoning, you'll luck into encounters where the boss hardly pays attention to you, robbing you of any satisfaction. Returning to Miyazaki's quote in full, if we really wanted the whole world to play the game, we could just crank down the difficulty more and more. But that wasn't the right approach. Had we taken that approach, I don't think the game would have done what it did, because the sense of achievement players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience. Turning down difficulty would strip the game of that joy, which in my eyes would break the game itself.
I mean, Miyazaki is fundamentally he's right, but at the same time, they did with Elden Ring exactly what he is against in this interview. You have so many ways in Elden Ring to just overcome the challenge. Like I mentioned, these fucking summons for one. So yeah, even if he didn't want to do it, he basically did it, honestly.
From the words of the director, turning down the difficulty is strictly against his wishes. And yet Elden Ring provides a spirit summoning system to do exactly that. Unable to find the way to increase the difficulty in a fair and balanced manner, they throw a kitchen sink of heightened aggression at you. Meanwhile,
okay, like this argument initially sounded not that good, but now I maybe like understand a little bit better what he means. If the idea is so the player supposed to get better fundamentally to overcome the challenge, like Miyazaki basically says in that interview, then yes, Elden Ring failed to deliver that assessment. That's actually true.
While your personal tools are stagnant, encouraging you to rely on automated elements with no skill expression to solve encounters for you. I'm reminded of an essay I watched from Matthew Matosis years ago, who recognized well before Elden Ring that Souls combat doesn't have the depth to support raising the bar. Instead, reliance on delayed, misleading attack animations, exponential increases to health, stamina, and damage output, and offensive density ill-suited for the player's kit build toward design that is more frustrating than fun. I'm baffled that Bloodborne and Sekiro were brilliant evolutions of Souls combat that were left behind in favor of a 5th entry with largely the same tools we've been using since Demon Souls. If the answer to overinflated difficulty is for the game to play itself, why bother?
So here is the thing, it's kind of different game. Like they just had different approach, but it's what I'm interested in is what basically Michael Zaki said in that interview. Because yeah, like they kind of like he says something, but the game represents something else. Like I would say that like combat in Elden Ring is actually an evolution, but yeah, like if they would stick to that idea of Souls games supposed to be challenging and you want players to overcome the challenge by just getting better and so on, then yeah, like FromSoftware absolutely failed on delivery in such case, because you have so many ways to just overcome an idea of individually getting better to overcome the challenge, and rather can just use the workaround. I mean, like, video's still good. Like, it's thoughts-provoking good videos, so of course. Like is dropped, subscribed, and good shit. GG.